Hi, everybody. Welcome to the ECofOC podcast. Today, I have the privilege of speaking with one of my fellow ECofOC executive coaches, someone who comes to us with an unbelievable background. She has worked in for-profit as well as nonprofit. Her last role was the chief executive officer at one of the nonprofits in Orange County. Without further ado, I would like to actually introduce my fellow executive coach, Linda Smith. Thanks so much, Linda, for joining us today.
Thank you, Nader, for having me.
Look forward to an engaging discussion. In particular, today's discussion is about the Executive Forum. It's one of the services we have at Executive Coaches of Orange County, and we would like to dive deeper. Linda, tell us a little bit more. We kind of hear about nonprofits and how the leadership often is described as lonely on top. Give us your perspective. You've been in the shoes of the executive director, CEO, as well as some of the things you're doing now. Why is it that the nonprofit leadership is typically described as lonely on top?
Yeah, absolutely. It really was a surprise for me having been a CEO in the for-profit environment. And when I came to the nonprofit world, the whole structure of the nonprofits are so different in terms of a volunteer board. There's certainly more, I think, consensus-driven leadership style. The board, although you report to them, because they're all volunteers and most of them from the community, they're certainly not subject matter experts. So they really look to the CEO for that. While you're providing the mission and the strategy to the staff, you certainly don't want to give them any cause for fear, although I was very transparent, of course. So you realize quickly you're sort of in the position on an island by yourself, and you look around for people that can give you some advice and help you in times of crisis, and it's pretty hard to find. And what happened to me is early in my tenure, I was approached by a group of women to join an inaugural executive director or CEO leadership forum. It was all women, but regardless. And I took the chance, and honestly, I tell people I was in my position 11 years. I couldn't have done it without them. Absolutely wouldn't have made it through those 11 years without this group of fellow executive directors, and it was facilitated by a woman who was the CEO of a nonprofit as well as a licensed clinical social worker. So that was a great addition as well.
Wonderful. It's always great to have a support group, so I can definitely relate to that.
Unbelievable. My group was structured off Vistage. I think people are familiar with that component. The woman that facilitated our group had a scholarship to Vistage, and she found it very helpful, with the exception of the rest of her cohort was not in the nonprofit environment, so that makes it a little bit different.
Got it. I guess what was the original mandate or the gap that the ECofOC Executive Director or CEO Forum was created to fill originally a couple of years ago?
Actually, I believe the group that I co-facilitate with John Benner was formed over 10 years ago for the exact purpose I'm talking about, to give the leaders, the nonprofit leaders, a space to come and talk about their challenges, to offer support to one another. One of the other amazing things is the resources that all of the nonprofits readily share. I think sometimes we think it can be a competitive environment because oftentimes we're competing for resources, perhaps. And I certainly did not see that in the forum that I was in, and not at all in the current forum that I co-facilitate. In fact, our group shares resources, shares grants, gives tips. Someone will ask, do you have a policy for this? And five people will respond, We talk about HR issues. We talk about where to find employees. We talk about board members, even as honest as perhaps sharing board members that move around organizations that may not always be the most helpful. So it really is a transparent group.
Got it. I guess it seems like obviously it's an area that you go and if you need help or just bringing up your issues or resources, but at the
Correct.
same time talking about the tough issues that they all face and such a great job that they do. How do you think you guys have been able to, I guess, them as well as the coaches have been able to create this safe zone that they're sharing so much information together with some peers that you said it might be competitors or it might be partners, but how have you guys created that safe zone, Linda?
That's a really good question. One, I think it starts with the facilitator and setting the tone of the meeting. We follow the same process every meeting. So each member does a monthly check-in about what's going on. And then we come back and ask the group if they have an issue that they want to bring forward to the group. And if so, after the check-ins, they will bring forward that issue. The group is allowed to ask clarifying questions, but they don't try and problem solve it. And then at the end of that information, they will offer suggestions or advice. And, in myself, I mean, some months it's really tough and you just need this group honestly to vent with. It's not always about the solution, but just to be able to share what's going on and realize you're not the only person and to have just such an amazing group of people that are there for you and they're really there to make the community a better place. It's an incredible thing to witness, to watch this group support and lift each other up. It's really a privilege to see that.
That's such a wonderful way of putting it. I guess in many ways, the types of challenges they have, let it be in coordination with their boards, staffing issues, fundraiser, general issues, grants, many others. Those are not unique to any of the particular nonprofits, but it's across the whole segment. So what a great sort of an area to brainstorm and learn. And like you said, sometimes even vent. I know I've done that across my career where I had a support group and mentors that I honestly couldn't do it without them. So, what a great way as you're describing.
And in
I
between the
appreciate it.
meetings, we'll see group emails go out asking questions or informing people if there's an event or a grant or just anything that's going on. So it's not just the month to month. One of the things I was going to add, this group went through COVID together, which is pretty amazing that they lasted through that component and entirely, obviously they used to meet in person and during COVID learned to meet on Zoom and it didn't change the dynamics at all. In fact, I think it probably solidified it even more when they were in that time of COVID and all by themselves. So
Right.
it's really a powerful group,
Wow. To have gone through COVID together, I guess there's
right?
another level of bond with at least this particular executive director forum. As you've kind of mentioned, there are several across ECofOC, but typically it seems like the team grows together and shares. There might be some attrition, there might be some added, but it appears you guys try to keep the teams together across, as it seems, across the years. Is that correct?
That's correct. We do. And we did notice when I first started, there had been some attrition, I think right after COVID, and just some different movement. And our group did add, I believe, 3 additional people. So we have 14, but the group again is so solidified. We like to keep the groups somewhere between 12 and 15. Typically in a meeting, 80% of the people will come. So we have somewhere between 9 and 11, 9 and 12. Even if we have 15, it's still great to keep the groups manageable, keep the meeting on time. We allow for 3 hours, but we flex that depending on the schedule as well.
Got it.
And then we meet twice a year in person. One of the meetings is in conjunction with the other executive director groups. So that's a fun one. Everybody comes together, and typically we break them into groups and have them have different conversations about all the challenges and how they're approaching, perhaps again, their board, their funding, their employees, all of those common issues that they all face. And then they can learn from each other, meet new people, ask questions. So that's a fun one. We do that in the spring.
Got it. I was lucky enough to be invited by you guys as one of the facilitators to the last
Yes,
one where the multiple executive forum
exactly.
members came in, and the amount of energy and insight is just amazing. At least on the one that I attended, it was really great. I know I learned a lot as a facilitator, just listening to the different challenges, what they're doing, and some of the breakouts you guys had organized was really
Thank you.
informative, at least looking at it from the outside in. I know one of the other things you guys do is come up with some topics for learning and doing that peer-to-peer learning, which I feel is so powerful for some of the executive directors. How do you guys come up in the sense of what is the topic or frequency? How do you guys come up with that theme of ongoing learning within your group?
We typically do a survey every year and ask the attendees what they're most concerned about. And it's not surprising that usually it's fundraising and fund development. A lot of times HR issues, the typical things that we see. And then we will try and find a speaker around it. It's interesting to me, different groups have different personalities. The group that I facilitate is a group of very experienced CEOs, and they prefer less speakers. They prefer more peer-to-peer contact and learning and interaction. And one of our other groups frequently has speakers almost every month. Like they'll have a speaker and then an hour to talk among themselves. So I like that because we make sure and adapt each one of the forums to the needs of the specific members and listen to what they want. It's certainly not about what the facilitators think is important. I think I add a different component because I was a CEO for so long. So occasionally I will chime in or share a resource if it's appropriate, and oftentimes get asked about that. But, or we'll go out and try and find a subject matter expert if someone is looking for that.
Are there some examples of breakthroughs or just thought provocations or things that kind of stand out in your mind over the last sort of several meetings that you would want to point out to our audience today in terms of, wow, that was a good example of maybe a group or maybe just two of the executive directors getting together? Any stories that would stand out?
A couple of them come to mind. We have one member who's retiring, so we've helped her, I think, through that transition, which is very emotional, but also, to be perfectly frank, I don't think her board handled it as well as they could have. So we've provided a space to allow for that. And then we had another member, she should be the poster child for ECofOC. Every one of her staff has a coach, and she's utilized every service we offer. But she truly had a horrible board storm. And her board, I believe, was acting honestly illegally against the bylaws, and they were attempting to force her out. And we were able to step in and help her find the tools within the structure of her bylaws and the organization, and give her the words and the tools in the background to speak to her board members about it. And a year later, she's got a dynamic board. Those toxic board members are gone. She's running an amazing organization. So I think that's a very powerful example. We also have a fairly new organization, and that member's been with us 3 years now, and it's been fun to watch her through the growth stages of the organizations where it was herself and a volunteer, and now she has an office, and just the growth pattern. She's expanding her board. So everybody's been able to chime in and help her and see her growth and celebrate. in that growth. So those are a few of the examples that readily come to mind.
Those are wonderful nuggets. I guess turning a really potentially bad situation into something that's an enabler was a wonderful story. And then including your second story, those were great nuggets.
It's really hard to watch when these committed, amazing leaders are struggling with these issues beyond their control. So to have that capability to come in and help them achieve what they're looking for is pretty amazing. I feel every time I'm around this group, they're so wise. I just come away with, I'm sure you saw that when you
I did.
attended that meeting. I write down what they say and I stop and I think, oh my goodness, this is an incredible group of people. Orange County is so lucky to have this group committed to serving our community. I would love more people. I'm glad we're doing this. I'd love more people to know that we're
Yeah.
out there.
I think we're blessed for so many of the nonprofits and their missions that they have within Orange County, and then the leaders that are leading these entities and making an impact in our community, which I know is very dear to both yourself and me, close to heart.
Exactly.
Who is the executive director forum typically designed for, if you had to say?
It's typically designed for an experienced leader. I think it's harder for the startups. We typically do not take a startup organization and refer them to one of our partners. 1OC has a wonderful program to help people with the startup component. We like to see established revenue, a couple of employees as well. Our group is fairly experienced. They're all sizes, though. I don't think that anyone should be hesitant given their revenue sizes at all. And it's designed for a group of leaders that really want to grow and learn and continue to improve their organization by watching and learning from other organizations as well, taking the best of the best and pieces from each group and seeing how you can apply it. I also think it's a group that's pretty transparent. So you have to be willing to be transparent and a little bit vulnerable. If you're going to expose, right, what's really going on in your group and take that kind of cape off. So our group is very open about that. So there's a lot of trust between all of the members, and that's really special to see.
No, that's wonderful. And then obviously a lot of the CEOs slash executive directors within your particular ED forum, as well as some of the others, they've been there for a long time, as you mentioned. Some of them, many of them have been there through the years. What are some of the long-term values they're seeing? Because it's almost like I'm an executive director, I got some issues. Let me join a peer group and get some discussion going. But I guess what's the long term that you're seeing of the gains that some of the leaders are getting from the forums?
I think they see the value of long-term friendship, much like you and I do. And although they may see each other during the month at different events, they really look forward to the monthly meetings where they can understand what's really going on with each other, share what's going on. So I think they look forward to that over the years. We have members that have been in the forum for over 10 years and they don't miss a meeting. They want to be there for each other, for themselves, and it flexes. Some months somebody's really in crisis and someone else can offer advice. Other times everything's going really well. So it's interesting to see those cycles, and they've been there for each other through all of them.
That's wonderful. One thing you mentioned earlier, and it resonated with me in the sense of there's the ED forum, CEO forum, then there is the one-on-one coaching that we
Yes,
typically offer for the CEO or for any of the leaders that report up to one of the C levels. And then there's the board services like the board retreat and some of the
yes.
other sort of the strategy meetings that we offer. How have you seen some of the people within the ED forum utilize the other services that ECofOC provides in particular?
The vast majority have individual coaches, and I think there's a big distinction between what the forum offers and what an individual coach offers. In terms of the individual coaches, we work on the specifics of what that CEO wants. So their leadership skills or fundraising skills, but very specific and individual. Where the forum is about the entire organization. Yes, it's about the CEO, but it's making that organization stronger, better, learning from one another. I think they complement each other beautifully. My CEOs that I coach on an individual basis, I basically require them to be in the forum because I think they're both so powerful. And then when they're bringing up a strategic plan or an annual board retreat, we advise them to use executive coaches of Orange County, and they've had incredible results. One of my individual clients, also in the forum, also just did a strategic plan with ECofOC and just couldn't talk more positively about it. And his board president was so impressed. The foresight and the planning that goes in from ECofOC is really incredible. I wish I had had that service when I was running my organization. I had to come up with the retreats or the strategic plan and look for someone to help me. And ECofOC has such a great format to do that. So I think it's a really powerful combination. We're really making these organizations the best they can be.
Absolutely. What would you say to an executive director that's considering joining a forum? What would you
I
tell
would say do it. Absolutely
them?
do it. They won't regret it. It's hard for people initially to sometimes think, I can't spare 2 or 3 hours a month. And I think that's the biggest negative that people see initially. However, once they do and once they commit, they see the benefit of it and they're able to carve out that time and make it about themselves and the organization and see what a powerful impact it has.
I've been blessed to have actually attended some of those as an observer and a facilitator. And every time I come away, I'm like, wow, there's a lot of great brain power.
As I said in the beginning, so often we feel alone or solitary as the CEO of a nonprofit, and it all rests on that leader to build their board, to go out and fundraise, to be the chief human resource officer, to develop a culture, to encourage their employees. The list is really endless and sometimes really overwhelming. And to have a resource like this with the experts that we have is pretty incredible to have that opportunity. So I would say you don't have to do it alone. The other thing I love about ECOC is all organizations have life cycles. And sometimes one coach is perfect for one part of the organization, and then you need to focus on something else. We're totally open to that. You can change coaches, you can change groups. That's another great opportunity, I think, as well. Or we can partner with other coaches if you have a particular need for one period of time. I really enjoy that because I see it with, I have more of a fundraising background, so I can come in and help with a small component. So we really try and flex and meet the needs, I think is what I'm trying to say. Really individualize it. It's not one size fits all, for sure.
Absolutely. As we started on top, it might seem like it's lonely on top, but like you mentioned, it doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be. And I think that's the biggest weight off of your shoulders when you realize, oh, I'm not in this alone. I have people that understand what I'm doing, and they're out there rooting for me too.
I know I utilize your expertise quite a bit on some of my clients, and I really
Thank
appreciate
you.
you and all that you do for our community. Thanks,
Thank
everyone,
you.
for joining us. And again, Linda, you're a champ. Thank you.